You will have competition in your business acquisition journey. And so let's talk about that and talk about the secrets to outsmarting and outperforming every rival that you'll run into. So let's do that. First is to understand who your competition is. You'll be competing against other bots. You'll be competing against business brokers at times. You'll be competing against private equity, all of those things. One of the things that you want to first think about is, how do I look compared to those things? Do you present a professional image or not? That starts with how you dress. That starts with your email address. You don't want a Hotmail or AOL or Gmail. You want a professional address. You want LinkedIn profiles that do the same thing. So the first impressions are important, really important. Now, with respect to dress, there's a lot of people that would dress like me. I am right now. And most of the time, depending upon who I'm talking to, that's how I would dress. But there's a few things to remember. If you're talking to people in the trades, however, you might want to not come in a shirt and a tie and a suit. Why? Because if they've been approached by other people, if private equity is after them, this is how private equity dresses. Maybe a different tie, maybe a different coat, maybe a different shirt, but this is what they look like. So you might want to separate yourself from that so you could relate better. Most poor salespeople talk about features, and they just talk. They don't listen. And so what I have to say to you really isn't important to you unless I know what it is you're looking for. And that's a great question to ask when you're talking to prospects or board members or financial institutions or professionals. What in a perfect world are you looking for? With board members, for instance, it doesn't really matter what I say to you until I understand what your goals are, and will my venture fit into what your goals are. So remember that. And one of the things that a lot of people don't pay attention to is communication. And communication is not only the spoken word. In fact, the spoken word is about 70% of communication. 38% is the tone of voice, and then 55% body language. So that's one of the reasons that something like this video shows you can hear my tone of voice, but you can also see my body language as well. You can see now I'm shaking my head or I'm saying yes, etc., etc. So all those things are important, and that's why a lot of times in-person or Zoom calls make so much sense. One of the things I recently did in the course that will soon be released is selecting your industry was to talk about your competition and understand them. Understand what private equity does. Understand what the bots sound like. If you make a call and say, are you interested in selling your business? And that's the way you begin. You sound an awful lot like a business broker. So you want to separate yourself from those. You want to understand the objections. And as you do more of these, you will hear objections. And you'll be in a position where at that point you can say, okay, how am I going to answer that objection? Because I'm going to hear it again. There's only a few objections. So you ought to do what Chris Voss called an accusation audit, where you say, okay, here are the objections. Here's how I'm going to overcome those objections. And you can certainly do those things. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about how you separate yourself from the competition. Know your competition, know what's happening in your industry. PE activity, for instance, is way off, and there's reasons for that. You should understand those. But the better you are at knowing who your competition is, knowing how you're different than your competition, and then marrying up your unique selling proposition, if you will, to the needs of who you're talking to, you will be much more successful. If you want to know the steps, and I hope you already know them, but if not, go over to brucewhipple.com, grab the Acquisition Advantage Bootcamp. That's important, and super important to follow the steps. That's the best work I've done on that. And if you want to begin conversations and don't know how to do that, go over to brucewhipple.com, end up getting the free course. If you want to go there directly, it's just brucewhipple.com/get class. But knowing your competition, knowing their weaknesses, knowing their strengths, marrying yourself with the needs of who you're talking to so that you're talking about benefits, not features. The more you do that, the more successful you will be in each of these steps: attracting board members, financial institutions, professionals, and ultimately prospects. So remember that, keep that in mind, separate yourself from the bots, etc., and you will have better success, I suspect.